The race begins. An unlikely competitor. Chris stepped off the shuttle onto the bustling hangar floor of the Prion space station. The air was thick with anticipation as racers and spectators alike prepared for the annual Intergalactic Starship race. He glanced around, taking in the sleek, advanced starships of his competitors, each one a testament to their respective species' technological prowess. His own ship, the Phoenix, looked like a relic in comparison, an old X-47 model that he had spent the last 3 years modifying and upgrading with every scrap of technology and ingenuity humanity had to offer. A hostile welcome. Well, if it isn't the human with his primitive starship, sneered Varys, a towering blue-skinned Prion, as he approached Chris. Your junker is an insult just being here. Chris felt his anger rising, but kept his cool. We'll see who gets the last laugh, Varys, he replied, meeting the alien's intimidating gaze with defiance. Varys jabbed a long blue finger into Chris's chest. When I humiliate you in this race, your entire species will know their inferiority. Chris gritted his teeth but held his tongue. He knew the real answer would come during the race. Sabotage in the shadows. Late that night, while the hangar was quiet and most of the other contestants had retired, Chris was busy making final adjustments to the Phoenix's life support system. Suddenly, an alarm blared from the console. Sparks flew from the wiring, and the life support systems began fluctuating wildly. Sabotage, Chris muttered, quickly shutting off the alarm. If this had happened in space, it could have been deadly. Determined to catch the culprit, Chris installed hidden cameras around the Phoenix. For several nights, he reviewed the footage until he finally saw a shadowy figure tampering with his ship. Zooming in, he recognized Zortex, a rival racer and known lackey of Varys. The confrontation. Chris confronted Zortex in the hangar the next day. I know what you did to my ship, he said, anger lacing his words. You nearly killed me. Zortex clicked his mandibles nervously. It was just business, human. Varys promised me a cut of the winnings to take you out of the race. Chris stormed off to report the incident to the race officials. However, without concrete evidence, his allegations were dismissed as circumstantial. The final preparations. With the race only a day away, Chris focused on making the Phoenix ready. He installed an experimental propulsion system, an amalgamation of human ingenuity and alien technology he had acquired on the black market. It was risky, but it could give him the edge he needed. As Chris made his way to his quarters that night, Varys and his lackeys cornered him. Withdraw now, human. Last chance, Varys growled. You want me out of this race. You'll have to beat me fair and square. Chris shot back, unwavering. The morning of the race, Chris's heart raced as he guided the Phoenix into position at the starting line. The sleek ships of his alien competitors gleamed under the hangar lights. He couldn't afford to let fear or doubt creep in now. The signal blared, and the ships lunged forward as one. The race had begun. The first challenge: navigating the asteroid field. The first major obstacle in the race was a dense asteroid field. Chris guided the Phoenix into the chaotic mess of space rock, his heart pounding. The nimble Phoenix zipped through the asteroids, Chris's piloting skills shining as he expertly navigated the treacherous terrain. Emerging as a contender. Emerging from the asteroid field, Chris found himself vying for the lead alongside Varys and a mysterious dark ship piloted by an unknown competitor. They barreled through the course, locked in a dead heat. The next challenge was even more harrowing: a supermassive black hole's accretion disk. Ships would have to thread the needle, balancing dangerously close to the event horizon. The black holes grasped. As they skirted the roiling maelstrom of energy and debris circling the black hole, several ships peeled off in defeat. The extreme conditions proved too much for them. Chris, Varys, and the dark ship shot out the far side of the accretion disk, still neck and neck. The Phoenix groaned under the strain, but Chris pushed on. The secret weapon. With the final stretch in sight, Chris activated his secret weapon, The experimental propulsion system. The ship jolted forward with a massive burst of acceleration, blasting past Varys and the dark ship. However, the Phoenix was never meant to take this level of strain. Alarms shrieked as the vessel shuddered violently, structural integrity failing. Bulkheads buckled around Chris as he fought to maintain control. A desperate gamble. Through skill and sheer force of will, Chris brought the rattling ship back from the brink of annihilation. The Phoenix held together, but the lead Chris had sacrificed so much to seize had all but evaporated. Varys and the mysterious dark ship were right on his tail. The final stretch. As the final stretch came into view, Varys made his move, ramming the Phoenix in a savage bid to snatch victory from Chris. The ships grappled and spun, locked together. Chris wrestled with the controls, the stars wheeling crazily outside the cockpit. Teeth gritted in desperation, he finally broke free of Varys' assault. But it was too late. The black ship rocketed across the finish line uncontested. A shocking revelation. The mysterious victor. In the wake of the race, the mysterious victor unmasked himself. It was Zortex, the same insectoid saboteur who had tampered with Chris's ship before. The wily Xanthian had played Varys and Chris against each other, eliminating his competition through guile and deception. A hero's welcome. Though Chris had not won the race, he had revealed the depths of human determination and ingenuity for all the galaxy to see. When he arrived home, he was greeted as a hero. His valiant effort had won Earth new respect on the intergalactic stage. An unexpected offer. Chris wiped the grease from his hands as he stared at the message on his datapad. The Prion High Council wanted to meet with him. They were impressed with the Phoenix's performance and his experimental propulsion system. They wanted to collaborate to develop new technologies together. The partnership begins. Chris and his team moved into a state-of-the-art Prion laboratory, working side by side with some of the brightest minds in the galaxy. At first, the Prions were skeptical of the human engineers' more unorthodox methods, but as they saw the results, their respect grew. Chris found himself spending long hours in the lab, poring over schematics and simulations with Zan, the Prion lead scientist. The two quickly developed a rapport, challenging each other to think in new ways. Rising tensions, but not everyone was happy with this new partnership. As Chris and Zan walked to the lab one morning, they were met by a crowd of angry protesters led by a fiery Prion named Zor. Traitors, Zor shouted. You sully our great civilization by sharing our secrets with these primitives. Chris bristled at the insult, but Zan held up a calming hand. Our collaboration with the humans will bring prosperity to both our peoples. We must embrace change, not fear it. A deadly attack. A growing threat. As the days went on, the protests grew larger and more vitriolic. Chris and Zan found themselves needing security escorts to get to and from the lab. Late one night, as they worked on a particularly tricky bit of code, the lab doors burst open. A group of armed Prions rushed in, led by a snarling Zor. You will pay for your betrayal. Zor leveled his weapon at Zan. A heroic sacrifice. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Zan pushed Chris to the floor, shielding him with his body as Zor fired. Chris heard Zan grunt in pain, saw blue blood blossom on his lab coat. Rage and adrenaline surged through Chris's veins. He leaped to his feet, tackling Zor and wresting the gun from his grip. The other attackers, seeing their leader fall, scattered. A grim realization. Chris knelt beside Zan, hands shaking as he tried to staunch the flow of blood. Just hold on. I'll get help. You'll be okay. Even as the medics rushed Zan away, Chris knew how grave the wound was. The attack was his fault. His collaboration with the Prions had painted a target on Zan's back. In the aftermath, as Zor and his followers were rounded up by security forces, Chris sat numbly in the hospital waiting room, head in his hands. Was it all worth it? The advances they'd made, the progress they'd achieved. Did it justify the price Zan had paid? Renewed determination. The Prion government was quick to reaffirm their commitment to the project. They pledged increased security and unwavering support. But Chris barely heard their assurances. All he could think of was Zan, lying pale and still in the hospital bed. Then a small hand touched his shoulder. Chris looked up to see Zan's daughter, eyes wet with tears. "My father believed in what you were doing," she said softly. "He believed in you. He would want you to keep going." In that moment, Chris knew what he had to do. He would honor Zan's sacrifice. He would take the partnership to new heights, achieve the breakthroughs they had dreamed of, not for glory, but for friendship, for trust, for the betterment of all. A breakthrough. The unity. Weeks turned into months. The lab hummed with renewed energy, human and Prion scientists working together in seamless harmony. The fruits of their labors began to take shape in the form of a revolutionary new starship, one that combined the best of both species' technology and ingenuity. The day of the unveiling was one of celebration and vindication. As Chris and his Prion counterparts pulled back the sheet to reveal the sleek lines of the Unity, the crowd erupted into cheers. It was more than a ship, more than a technological marvel. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when different peoples and cultures worked together. As Chris met the shining eyes of his team, humans and Prions alike, he felt a swell of pride. They had weathered storms, overcome hatred, and forged something beautiful, something lasting. They had shown the galaxy what unity truly meant. A new threat. Chris glanced to the side of the stage where Zan sat in a place of honor, still recovering but beaming with pride. Their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. This was only the beginning. The Unity gleamed under the bright lights of the launch bay, a testament to the tireless efforts of Chris, Zan, and their team. Dignitaries from Earth and Praeoria filled the observation deck, murmuring in excitement. The Prion Prime Minister stepped up to the podium. "Today we celebrate not just a technological marvel, but a bond between our peoples." His words were cut off by a commotion at the back of the room. The crowd parted, revealing a disheveled, desperate-looking Prion. "Varys," Chris breathed, recognizing the disgraced pilot. Varys stumbled forward, ignoring the security guards reaching for their weapons. "Please, you must listen," Varys rasped. "The traditionalists, Zor, they're not working alone." Zan held up a hand, staying the guards. "Explain yourself." Varys's voice shook. "The Kranoks, a hostile species bent on dominating us all. They've been manipulating Zor, using him to undermine your partnership. A desperate mission." A chill ran down Chris's spine. "How do you know this?" he demanded. "Because they tried to recruit me after the race. I refused, went into hiding, but I couldn't stand by. Not anymore." Varys straightened, a flicker of his old fire returning. "I want to help. I want to make things right." Chris looked to Zan and saw the same realization in his eyes. This changed everything. The Prime Minister cleared his throat. "It seems our maiden voyage must wait. Captain Chris, gather your crew. If this threat is real, the Unity must uncover the truth." Chris nodded, already moving. "Zan, Varys, you're with me. We have a conspiracy to unravel." The final battle. Into enemy territory. The Unity slipped out of the launch bay, a shadow against the stars. Chris sat in the captain's chair, Zan at his right hand. Varys hunched over the sensor array. The bridge hummed with tension. They started at the traditionalist stronghold, sifting through abandoned computers, searching for a trail. Fragments emerged, coded transmissions, deleted files, whispers of a planet on the fringes of known space. "The Kranoks' homeworld," Varys said grimly. "It has to be." As they raced toward the coordinates, Chris pored over every scrap of data they'd gathered, trying to piece together the Kranoks' plan. A chilling picture emerged. "They've infiltrated both our governments," Chris said, dread settling in his gut. "Sleeper agents, waiting for a signal. And look at this." He pointed to the data on the screen. "A fleet, amassing just beyond sensor range. Zan's fists clenched. An invasion force. They're going to attack, wipe out our defenses before we even know what's happening. Not if we stop them first, Chris said, steel in his voice. A battle against all odds. They sent warnings racing back to Earth and Prioria, praying they would be believed. Then the Unity plunged into Cranach space, one ship against an armada. Laser fire streaked past the view screen as they wove between enemy vessels, searching for a weakness, an opening. The Cranach ships were strong but slow to turn. Chris saw their chance. There, he pointed to a flickering shield juncture on the lead dreadnought. Varys, lock torpedoes. Zan, get ready to punch a hole in their defenses. The crew moved as one, a perfect dance of human instinct and Prian precision. Torpedoes blazed through space, Zan's deft manipulation of the Unity systems guiding them true. The dreadnought's shield flickered, faltered. Fire at will. Chris roared. The Unity unleashed a barrage, tearing into the exposed hull. The Cranach ship listed, belching flames, but even as it fell away, 3 more moved to take its place, cannons bristling. We can't take another hit like that, Zan warned, his face grim. Chris's mind raced, desperate for a solution. Then Varys spoke, his voice quiet but firm. I have an idea. If I take a shuttle, get in close, I can plant charges on their shield generators, blow them wide open. A heroic sacrifice. No, it's too risky. We'll find another way. Chris shook his head. But Varys was already moving, a small smile on his face. This is my chance, Chris. To make amends. To be the Prian I should have been all along. Before Chris could argue, Varys was gone, the shuttle speeding towards the Cranach's fleet. Chris watched helpless as the tiny craft wove through a hail of fire, disappearing into the dreadnought's hangar bay. For a moment, all was still. Then a brilliant flash lit up the Cranach ship, then another and another. Explosions blossomed along its hull as its shields winked out of existence. All weapons, fire, Chris roared. The Unity unleashed hell, tearing into the defenseless ship. It crumpled like tin foil, secondary explosions ripping it apart from within. But there was no sign of Varys' shuttle. A new beginning, the aftermath. The battle raged on. The Unity ripped through the disarrayed Cranach's fleet. One by one, the enemy ships fell until only the Unity remained, battered but unbowed. In the aftermath, Chris and Zan stood on the bridge, staring out at the wreckage. The Cranach's threat was ended, the conspiracy unraveled. Earth and Prioria were safe, their partnership stronger than ever. But the cost had been high. He did it, Zan said softly. Varys. He saved us all. Chris nodded, a lump in his throat. He found his redemption in the end. They stood in silence, mourning the friend they had lost and celebrating the future he had given them. The Unity had lived up to her name. A hero remembered. Chris and Zan returned to Prioria as heroes. The Unity's success was hailed as a triumph of cooperation and mutual respect between Earth and Prioria. Statues were erected in honor of Varys, the Prian who had given his life to save them all. Chris stood before one of the statues, Zan by his side. He would have been proud, Zan said quietly. Chris nodded. He was a hero, and he showed us what we could achieve together. Moving forward, the partnership between Earth and Prioria flourished. Together, they continued to push the boundaries of science and technology, exploring new frontiers and forging new alliances. The Unity became a symbol of hope and cooperation, its legacy a testament to the power of unity and the strength of the human spirit. As Chris looked out at the stars, he knew that their journey was far from over. There were still challenges to face, still battles to fight, but he also knew that they would face them together, united by a common purpose and an unbreakable bond of friendship. And in the end, that was what mattered most. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.